Good Monday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the Monday Market Monitor. Of course, we're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth country and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Literally, I have every social media platform known to mankind live in front of me as we stream to 15 Facebook pages, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, Instagram, and more. So much to cover on today's program with Keith Smith, who you will see in a matter of moments, and Nikki Chambless as well. The Monday of Thanksgiving, a short week for many. As we hurry to the end of the week, it's certainly important to be mindful of what we're grateful and thankful for. We are coming out of a pandemic never seen before by mankind, and folks, the future is bright, and it's certainly bright here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Judah Wickower is our director. Judah, if we can go to the studio camera, and of course we'll acknowledge Allied Property Management for being a part of the program, Sigora Solar, Closure Title, and yes, Realty Partners, stewards of this community and stakeholders as well. Nikki and Keith on camera now. Good Monday morning, guys. How are you?
I felt like singing E-I-E-I-O after you went through the list.
Very nice.
I was going to jump in, but I didn't want to.
Thank you for not jumping in.
I didn't want to. I'm learning. Good. When Jerry's talking, shut up.
That's a good rule of thumb.
That's a good rule of thumb. So, it's short week, Thanksgiving coming up. We all kind of want to talk a little bit about what we're thankful for, but I think we want to be a little thankful for a change in some of the numbers that are happening week over week. For those who watch the show on Monday on a regular basis, we know we kind of take a look at what happened last week within the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors footprint, right? That's Charlottesville, Albemarle, Nelson, Greene, and Louisa County. And I'm happy to report we're kind of back on par. Last week, we were at 46 new homes that came on the market, but 91 went off, so that's a huge swing that way. This week, 82 came on. This is the last 7 days from 11/14 to 11/21, and 84 went pending. But what's really interesting is week over week, we nearly doubled the new on the market. So last week, we had 46. Right, so that'd be the week from 11/7 to 11/14. We had 46 come on, and this week from 11/14 to 21, we had 82. So we all been talking about when was inventory going to start creeping up a little bit. That's a double. That's nearly double. So what do you think as a testament to that, Nikki? What do you think why that jumped up so much?
So I'm really not sure, but I'm like kind of holding my breath just a little bit. So what I really want to see is the numbers we bring next week, right? Because I'm like, oh, is this just like a one-off? What are we doing right now? But I really like it. I like that change. I like having more houses for my agents to be able to show to their buyers, right?
So it's been a little bit up and down, a little bit of W, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't. We've been doing this for a while. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of number before.
No, we have not seen that kind of jump. So that's why I'm like, ooh, I don't know the why right now, but I feel like between now and next week, we'll have a clearer picture as to the why.
I think the why is associated with confidence in the market. 85, 90% plus of Albemarle County has been vaccinated. And as vaccinations become more ubiquitous and across market, people have a sense of confidence to return to normalcy. And as we return to normalcy, people want to start selling their home. So I think there's a direct correlation with vax rates and confidence of listing homes, because you feel comfortable with people entering your crib, into your house, to put your house on the market.
And just to put a little finer point to that, not necessarily about real estate, but our youngest daughter was supposed to fly in last night from Seattle, and I was supposed to pick her up in Washington last night at 10 o'clock, and she couldn't get on the plane and actually had to pivot because there were so many people flying into New York, and we're trying to figure out right now how to get her from New York back down here for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I'm getting my booster shot today. Kids that are 5 to 11, Albemarle County, over 30% have had at least one shot. So moms are feeling much more confident. Dads are feeling much more confident of having strangers walking through their homes. And if you have confidence in having strangers walk through your home, then you're going to have confident listing your house.
We were talking off air before we went live, and I don't think we're going to have a winter season. I really don't think. I think we're just going, if these, like you say, next week would be, it's going to be an odd week, right? It's Thanksgiving week.
But you know what? There are certain areas of the market that pick up because it's Thanksgiving week. There are a lot of people who have ties here, whether it's UVA or family or a combination of both, and they want to see homes when they're here visiting for Thanksgiving.
So we have a listing that we're bringing on over at Lake Monticello, and literally that was the conversation. Hurry up! They all of a sudden made a decision to put it on the market. Hurry up, get the photography done. Hurry up, get it done because we want to put it in coming soon status before Thanksgiving because all the families because people are traveling again,
yes, they are.
And they want to look at it. So. Who knows? I think next week and the week after is going to be, kind of tell if this trend is going in that right direction. But, we were talking about maybe spring being in January. I'm just thinking, I don't know. It just feels like the vibe out there that there isn't going to be this traditional winter slowdown. Are you seeing the same thing?
I agree. I don't think there's really room for things to slow down. I think as long as there are houses to show, there are going to be buyers who want to see them, as long as they can get their, all-wheel drive vehicles to the house, right? But I think a lot of us are used to that in our area, and while the town overall tends to shut down for weather, I've not seen that my business shuts down for that.
Oh, you're talking about the weather impact.
I'm talking about the weather impact, but also because all those things are related, that's a thing that could slow it down, but I don't find it does.
I think Jerry's coined of the digital
curb appeal.
Will help that very much so.
Yes. Absolutely.
And what better time to put your home on the market? There's very little inventory out there right now. So listing now just minimizes or diminishes the competition your house is going to face from a time on site online, from eyeballs on site. I mean, and you also have the aspect of families coming to visit your houses now. So with families in there, you're going to feel a little pinch, a little crunch, a little busyness, and be like, hey, maybe I do need a little extra space. Or maybe you are heading to your kids and you don't need the massive house anymore to host Thanksgiving because you're an empty nester. So you're looking to downsize. Stu Rifkin, welcome to the show.
Hey.
We're excited to see you at 12:30. Stu Rifkin to talk business brokerage on the I Love CVille show. Nicholas Erpy, hello and welcome to the program. I mean, I'm looking at the NAR data that was just released. Sales of previously owned homes in October rose by nearly 1 percentage point to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 6,340,000 units. That's according to NAR. Those stats released today. Thoughts on the data released by NAR, Keith?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it just goes back to what I'm saying is I just don't see this slowing down. I just see this kind of snowballing or rolling forward. And we're starting to see interest rates creep up. We've been talking to Scott Morris about that, and he's going to come in and talk a little bit more about this on future shows. But I don't really think it's going to slow it down. It would need to substantially get up there in rate. I mean, when I mean up there, like double where we currently are, I think to have some sort of impact. So, I don't really see, there's nothing on the horizon. It's not like the last time, right? The time of great unpleasantness. If everybody was honest with each other, we kind of all saw it happening and we all knew what was going on wasn't sustainable or right. But there's nothing out there that's indicating that vibe is out there that, it's a little shady, right? The way people was able to get loans. Maybe that's the wrong choice of words, but it was a little weird how that can happen. I don't really see that, but I think the real problem here, and we've been talking about this, is inventory. We had a client appreciation event this weekend, Yona and I, and one of our, I asked permission to talk about this as he said I could, but not to use his name, is a dear friend of ours, former client of ours that runs one of the largest building materials suppliers on the Eastern Seaboard. It's a rather large firm. And I was talking to him on the side. I pulled him over. I said, so how are we doing with prices? How is inflation going to impact his world and all this stuff? And he said, look, materials costs are kind of come down. Lumber has come back down. But I mean, it didn't take a fraction of a second. He says, but I can't hire people, right? I can't hire truck drivers. I can't hire people in the backs to sort materials out on that end of it. And then on the job side of it, you can't hire. There's nobody to hire. There's no electricians to hire. There's no plumbers to hire. And that's what he was worried about, on what impact that's going to have long term. He says, look, materials will kind of balance itself out. We all said it would, right? And it is. But that second component, to me, that's the canary in the coal mine, right? And because if we can't change this new inventory issue, it's going to impact the existing inventory. So, I don't know what answers I have other than this was it just validated everything we've been talking about for quite some time.
What do you think, Nikki?
I think we need new houses to be built. And so that means we need people to fill these jobs. And I don't know what that's going to take, because they're not the only industry, they're not the only place suffering from not being able to find people who can work. I do think having vaccinations open up to our kids, if we can get our school system kind of back to a more norm, that will help. I don't know how much it will help directly that, but I do know that's a big factor as far as people working and being able to go do jobs. So to me, that'll be a small piece of that big puzzle.
Lisa Sturdivant, the economist of Virginia Association of Realtors, released some data 38 minutes ago. I follow her very closely. October 2021 home sales report is out, and she characterized October as a little weird. She identified the Delta variant, inflation, and uptick in mortgage rates, and kids back to in-person schooling, leading to some surprising stats in October. Home sales down both year over year and month to month, but prices are still rising and homes continue to sell quickly. So sales of homes, October 2021 versus 2020, down.
That's in the state of Virginia.
State of Virginia. And sales of homes, October versus September, also down. But homes moving quickly, according to PhD Lisa Sturdivant.
Well, again, she's agreed to come on the show. We're just trying to finagle a date and a time that she can physically come here to talk a little bit about this, because she normally does our crystal ball for 2022.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get our calendars all to match so she can come in and talk about that, because she's a pretty dynamic speaker, right? She's not your classic doctor of economics, right? She's pretty energizing in the way she speaks. But I think if you had her sitting here, she would tell you, the reason this slowdown isn't because the buyer pool is shrinking down. It's just the seller pool, right? The product is just kind of hovering there, and it's not really increasing in it. And I know we talk about this repetitively. I just don't know what the answer is to go, other than create more, what the answer is to move that needle forward on that end of it. But what I wanted to ask Nikki, so, you're a team member, what's your official title?
Team leader.
Team leader, thank you. So you're a team leader for Keller Williams Alliance, so you team lead a lot of agents. So what is the water cooler conversation at your office about what we're talking about? Where is the water cooler conversation about what's happening?
Besides more inventory.
Yeah,
well,
there you go.
So a lot of it is, hey, if you're not running your business in such a way where your value add, what you're really giving to your clients, whether it's a buyer or a seller, is very clearly communicated and shown and consistent, you need to rethink. Either you're in the wrong business or you need to up your game. And we've talked about that on the show quite a few times. So that's a huge part of it. And it's also hey, let's take a step back and look, because you're doing this business. These are conversations I'm having even with my top 20% of agents, right? Where sometimes you get so in it, you've got to take a step back, have conversations with other people, hear what other people are doing, and just get some fresh ideas in your brain and get a new perspective of what other people are seeing and experiencing. Because while overall we're all seeing very similar things, there are differences. I spoke with one agent this morning who says, hey, you know what? The homes that my buyers are looking for are still flying off the shelves. Another agent I spoke to.
What price point was that?
Well, see, and I don't know, but it was actually part of that challenge was one of them is not somebody who has like a low limit for what they're looking for. What that particular agent is struggling with is they're working with quite a few out-of-town buyers who are coming to Charlottesville thinking it's a less expensive place to live. Ooh. And are having a really hard time wrapping their brains around the fact that, hey, you know what? Here are the comps. The comps back the value of the homes. It's not that there aren't comps out there. We can prove the value of these homes and that it's lasting and we're good right now. And so they're like, oh, but I thought I was moving. No, they shouldn't be this expensive here.
And
Where are they coming from?
Northeast?
Okay.
so it's interesting because for decades, primarily homes that I built were from folks from the Northeast. And even in the 1980s and the 1990s, we would have this conversation about well, I didn't think it was that expensive. And this is all about education and setting expectations, and your clients having, your agents having conversations with their clients to set expectation, or sending a few links or listening to Real Talk, because we talk about this all the time. Number
I
one
know.
place to retirees to move in 2020. Excuse me, number two place to retire. Thank you for the chemistry went.
saw that.
Smith, you were wrong.
The look.
right.
No,
on that end of it. But let's face it. And Jerry can probably Google this. What's the second highest cost of living in the state of Virginia?
Second highest cost of living is Northern Virginia. I actually put this on the I Love CVille Network last week. We have 4 of the highest. In fact, I'll read verbatim from the I Love CVille Network. The 3 wealthiest localities in the country are all in Virginia.
That's
The
exactly
U.S.
right.
Census Bureau ranks Loudoun County, Falls Church, and Fairfax County first, second, and third based on median household income. Arlington ranks 8th, Fairfax City 10th. That means 5 of the top 10 most affluent localities in the country, half are in Virginia. That's on I Love CVille Instagram, reading verbatim from it right now.
And so what happens with that, right? How does that rubber band work, right? That rubber band moves us down to our particular region on that end of it. So, I think as far as coaching your agents go, I mean, they just need to have that conversation.
Oh, no, they're having
with them.
those conversations, but some people are never going to hear it. That's just the way that is. I find I've run into this similar thing with some local people where they're like, oh, but you know what? I can't believe that it's changed that much in the last 10 years. Some people are just never going to be able to hear it.
Sure.
But then on the other hand, I'm having other water cooler conversations where, some agents are like, when my clients that are looking are finding that some of those homes are lasting a little bit longer on the market. So they're seeing that's a different price point possibly. It's
so
people who aren't as urgently looking. Right?
Right. So define a little bit longer on the market, because we got to put that in a bit of historical
So the
context.
numbers that were thrown out there were like 10, 20,
Yeah.
up to 40 days, which for right now,
It's nothing.
that's a long time on the market.
Well, in the historical concept, it's nothing.
It's
40
nothing
days.
historically, absolutely.
And in fact, you can even make a legitimate argument that 40 days or under on market is not even a healthy or balanced market. I'm curious to see if the agents that you're leading, and Katie Pearl, we'll get to your comment here in a matter of moments, the agents that you're leading, Nikki, are they having the best year in the history of their company, of their business?
It varies. Some
Yeah.
of them last year was better, some of them this year is better. But generally speaking, most of my very active agents, one of those two is true, right? And I'm waiting to see, for some of them, they're working on closing out the year, but this year has been very good for them. And it's that consistency and being on top of things and knowing the market and being able to communicate that well to their clients,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
whether all of them are going to hear it or not. Knowing what you're doing in general is needed, but especially in a market that if you look over the last 2 years, if you're not actively in this and you don't know your stuff, you are not qualified to speak on it.
Well, here's the reality of it. You're going to get called out on it really fast,
Yeah.
right?
I hope
Because
so.
And do a show like Real Talk, and you'll figure it out very quickly.
there you go. Well done, sir.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're 100% right. People watch Real Talk. This iPhone I hold in my hand has made the buyer and seller pretty sophisticated, right? They understand what the market is, and they'll know pretty quickly if you're bringing your A game or not. Katie Pearl had a
Yeah, Katie Pearl has this comment. I have a few buyer clients with an over $1 million price point, but what they want is so specific that the lack of inventory makes it feel like we are looking for a needle in a haystack. This has been my best year yet. I'm very, very grateful. Katie Pearl. More comments coming in on Twitter, some coming in on LinkedIn, some on YouTube and Spotify. I'll get to those in a matter of moments. Thoughts on Katie Pearl's comment?
So it's funny, about 24 months ago, if we would have had this conversation, and assuming it was, the first comment I would have made is, well, Katie, has your client considered new construction? you can't even do new
Yeah.
construction now at that number.
Well, and let's cut to the chase. $1 million home now is not the same $1 million home it was even, 4 or 5 years ago. And I know people are like, well, of course that's the case. It's been 4 or 5 years. No, really, look at the square feet that you're getting now for a brand new constructed $1 million home and a $1 million home for 4 or 5 years ago, and it's vastly different.
And it's one of this conversation that we're just about ready to have is one of the reasons why I volunteer so much of my time to help affordable housing do this, because this delta, this separation is just getting wider and wider and wider.
Well, and I'm finding that if they're in that case where it's so specific, they're having to make the decision of what are we willing to give on, or are we willing to continue waiting, and is it worth continuing waiting as we're waiting to see what rates do eventually, right? At some point, they have to go up at least a little.
They are going up.
Right, and depending on how much of this someone is wanting to finance, a lot of people are very about using some cheap money, which it really is right now, but that means you have to have a house to buy.
So congratulations, Katie Pearl. You've had your best year because you're a rock star. Congratulations.
Yes, you are.
Katie Pearl has been on Today y Mañana. We appreciate when you come on the I Love CVille Network, Katie Pearl. So where do you guys think it's going to go to start December? Where do you guys think it's going to go with January here? Are we going to see an uptick in inventory?
Well, if what we just did week over week holds, the answer is yes.
What do you think, Katie Pearl? Uptick in inventory. Stu Rifkin, what do you think? Dan Pettit, what do you think? Ray Cadell, what do you think? Neil Williamson, hello, what do you think? Marina, what do you think? Uptick in inventory, December and Q1.
Well, and I will say right now, a lot of people they're getting the fact that there isn't a bad time to list their house.
That's exactly
What they
right.
are stuck with is
where I'm gonna
getting
go
some repairs
next.
done.
Yeah.
So, no, it's not even that. It's hey, we've got to get the house ready, which means doing a couple of things. But even getting small things done right now can be challenging if you don't have those resources.
So speaking of that, so we had a leaky toilet. And if you were to take a look at my Class A license, I'm actually a master plumber.
Ooh.
And Jonas.
And did you fix it?
No, Yona hired somebody. but trust me. But the
You're a
hire.
woman though, because you're running around doing other things.
Yeah. Well, she's a smart woman. Period.
That is true.
Not so much in choice of men, but she's a smart woman. But we ended up having to hire because we were busy. You're 100% right, helping other people and all this kind of great stuff. But we had to hire a handyman, and it took me a couple of weeks to get somebody to come in and just change out the guts and change the valve.
I got a guy that can come within 24 hours.
You got a guy?
I got a guy.
You got a guy.
We do a lot of.
I got a guy too. I'm just saying.
got
He
a guy.
does a lot
I like
of
my guy.
plumbing work here in the Macklin building. He's happy to come over to your place tomorrow if you'd like.
Well, I
just
got
let me know if you need a reference.
I need a reference.
Happy to help.
I got a guy.
Dan Pettit, welcome to the program. He wants to know what costumes we're going to be wearing.
For tomorrow,
Yeah.
you have
Is it
to
gonna
watch.
be Turkey and Robin tomorrow?
You have to watch.
what
I've bought something that I am not even going to share with Mr. Miller, and
Ooh.
we'll find out tomorrow. That I have a feeling half of the show tomorrow is going to be talking about the impacts on one of our things that are important to us. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
I'm excited for tomorrow's program. Looks like we're in costume.
It's going to be maybe stump the turkeys kind of day. I don't know. We'll see.
How about this question that's coming from Spencer? Where do we see the inventory specifically, area or geographically coming?
So we're talking new inventory or just general inventory?
General inventory.
General inventory. Yeah, it's we
Hello,
talk,
Aaron King.
we've talked about this all the time. It's the 5 things: location, price, features, conditions, and timing on that end of it. And you just need to kind of stay on top of it. It really depends on the price point. But every market, every region within our footprint is just really kind of stretched thin with inventory. So it really depends on what your client wants, what you want to buy on that. But if you're looking for first-time home buyer, that kind of thing, I mean, that's just getting harder and harder to find. And even $1 million is hard to find. So, to take a dive into an individual market is going to be really difficult at this point.
What do you think, Nikki?
Well, I'm just doing a real quick glance of the last three days, and it includes a little more than with the numbers we've been talking about. And I'm seeing Charlottesville, Wintergreen, Ruckersville, Palmyra, Standardsville, Charlottesville, Ruckersville, a little bit of Fredericksburg in there. So it's kind of everywhere.
Oh, you've got a wider footprint than I do. Got it.
Right. I'm just doing the very broad. Yeah,
Got
that's yeah.
Yeah, so look, here's the answer to the short answer to that. Reach out to a trusted advisor, right? Sit down and kind of take a dive into it and figure out where that fits. If you're in the market to buy, there's not a better time. We talk about this all the time. It's not a better time to do that. I think on the new construction side, you're going to see in the next 12 to 36 months some substantial increase in units. In Fulvana County, you're going to start seeing some units coming on the market.
Where specifically?
So around Lake Monticello, it's a little subdivision called Colonial Circle. They should be pushing dirt the beginning in January. There'll be 325 units there. 200 of them are single-family detached and townhomes. And then really exciting about that project is going to include 125 affordable apartment complex in that will range between 50 and 70% area median income for that. So that's a
great.
That'll be a great need out in that marketplace for it. And there's a couple other subdivisions on the books that are running through the planning process in the various counties around here. So if they're successful to go through, there is a potential for a bit of an uptick. The problem is, unless it's quote unquote shovel ready right now, it's going to be years down the road before we get that. It's not going to help us in the short term. So the one we just talked about, Colonial Circle, they probably won't have homes ready for purchase until middle 2023.
Okay, so we can discount those.
Well, the point is
2023, that's 18 months from now.
There's
20 months from now.
There's very few projects that are in the middle of developing right now.
Ken Wooten says hi from Pensacola, Florida.
Hey.
Hi, Dad.
Michael Lyle's giving you some props over there. Nikki Chambless. Dan Pettit is acknowledging what we just talked about here. The new construction, the delivery times is way out from now.
Yeah.
And Pettit, and we love you, Dan, and we love that forehand, that backhand, is basically saying the new construction is going to have no impact on the market.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to have any impact on the market at this current time, right? There's some small projects going on, or some projects that are trying to get in. I know Southern Development. I mean, just this. I mean, Neil was talking about this on Friday. Southern Development's doing a couple of projects they're trying to get in. They can't get building permits. So even if projects were ready to go vertical, on that end of it, you're three months out for building permits, a month out for CO. We have 2 new construction projects that we were supposed to close in December, which will not close in December because they can't get COs.
Kevin Higgins, Nikki Chambless, what's on that mind over there?
Who, me? Now?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
All the things. What are you talking about? All the things are always on my mind right now. But my brain's going from new construction to the affordable housing aspect to that time frame of waiting for things. So it is not really helping our people right now. And I think it's really great that they're there. So it might not be helping our market right now, but it will when it hits. It will help.
Well,
is it enough? Absolutely not.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit for the sake of a talk show on this stuff, because I can speak from personal experience. The market could change 3 years from now, right? The market could change for 3 years from now. And
to what though?
Higher interest rates, less buyer demand, impact on unemployment rates going up. So many things can change from a market standpoint in 18 or 24 months.
And I've personally experienced it. So it could happen, So we're going to track these things. We're going to keep a close eye on them. This is what we do here. But short-term fixes, even the FLUM that was, what's it, FLAM?
FLUM, future land use map.
At Charlottesville, that was, the comprehensive plan was approved, is also 12, 24 months, 36 months down before it has any impact on the city of Charlottesville. So, unless rates go insanely high, which, Yellen is saying that's probably not going to happen. The market is saying it's probably not going to happen. So we're going to be just having this conversation week over week.
Absolutely. Well, and even with looking at a 3-year possible shift in market, whatever that shift is, we are still an area with a high demand for housing. Regardless of the market, is that not? So I was not in real estate through those years, right?
What do we call them?
I was going to say it wrong, so I wasn't going to say
time
it,
of
Keith.
great
unpleasantness.
I was counting on you piping in with that.
So it's funny you should bring that up. I ran a spreadsheet for 20 years. and what the appreciation was year over year, because I got nothing else to do and this is fun and I love to crunch numbers on that end of it. But I ran it for the last 20 years because it included this period of time of great unpleasantness in the middle. And to your point, our region, depending like specifically where you were at, it ranged anywhere between 3 to 5% average appreciation year over year if you held onto your home for 20 years. So to your point, we tend to be somewhat insulated here on that end of it. The Great Depression or Great Recession, real estate recession did impact us substantially here. The folks that had their homes lost and all that stuff can testify to that. On that end of it, I can personally testify to that. But globally within the region, we did not. If you held on to your home for a long enough period of time, you will always do well.
Kevin Higgins, what are your thoughts on expanding inventory of tiny homes in Charlottesville or Albemarle surrounding localities? Is there a need out there for tiny homes?
Yes, and more yes, and I agree 100% yes. Actually just got a text this morning from Casey, and she's in Detroit, Cassidy, in Detroit doing tiny homes. Yeah, I think
you're talking about Gwendolyn
Cassidy. Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, it's her birthday today.
It is.
Sure, happy birthday.
It is.
So
watching the show.
So thank you. Apologize for the name mix-up
Yeah.
on that end of it. I can't even get my kids right, so they'll understand.
Yell some name, they'll answer.
But it will help. It will help. It will impact it. But you have to have the regulatory environment there to allow it to happen. Right,
and that's what we're missing. I think so many of us are here for this conversation and here for it being a reality, and yet we're not there yet. That's my understanding.
The interesting factoid about tiny homes is, while the square feet is considerably smaller than traditional single-family detached,
costs more to build.
The cost of construction is just as high as single-family detached.
Actually, in some cases, higher.
So while you can get potentially more dense amount of homes, a larger amount of rooftops, it's not going to make it any more affordable.
Absolutely right. And I'm part of a national cohort that's actually working on this, and that is the ceiling we always hit, right? Is the cost per square foot is actually higher than if you were to build an 1,800 square foot house or a 2,000 square foot house, because
it takes a sophisticated builder to build one of those.
Well, and also that, heating and cooling is still heating and cooling. Kitchen is still a kitchen. The
electrical.
Exactly right. The big ticket items, as you get larger in square footage, right, then your per square foot drops down. You get smaller in square footage. Your per square foot goes up. And the only way to really offset that is with subsidies. Right, with either state or federal or grant money or some way to offset that, to make it a little bit more cost effective. But it's I had this conversation this weekend about doing the modulars for tiny homes, and the conversation we had was we were in the Ix building, and it was, I own a couple of properties in Belmont, and let's put a small modular in the backyard. And I said, okay, well, how are you going to get it there, right? How are you going to get it to a backyard? How are you going to lift it over the top of the house? How are you going to relocate all the utilities, the overhead utilities, because the crane operator won't lift it over that? How are you going to do all that? And when you factor in all those costs, and we penciled it out on the back of a napkin, he said, well, I'm just going to stick frame them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't think I had a conversation before about those fixed cost aspects of, it doesn't matter what size the house is, an HVAC is an HVAC, and you mightn't be able to do one of the lower end models, but it's still not an inexpensive item.
So if you do like a 1.5 ton unit versus a 3 ton unit, they're almost identically the same price.
Katie's got a question. In terms of inventory that's upcoming, I have 2 listings in the outlying counties, Rockingham and then one at the lake. Any updates on the development that's supposed to be up and coming in Greene County next to the sheets off Route 29? Nikki Chambless.
Oh, I'm passing this one to Keith for a minute.
So
I
I
have
think,
an update on that.
yeah, so why don't you take it, because I don't want to,
Alright,
there's a couple
Jerry.
going on, I don't want to pick the wrong one.
That's the sheets next to Route 29. Neil Williamson taught us about
Yeah,
this
yeah.
when he came on this program. So that piece of property was recently sold for a handful of millions of dollars, and right now it's in the planning stages of development. So I think that also is a ways away, Katie Pearl, from becoming a reality. Frankly speaking, if you're looking for new construction to come to market, Stanley Martin's pretty much sold out in the back of Glenmore off of Carroll Creek. You may have some Breezy Hill on market at the tail end of next year, but I don't think that's going to be a reality.
Yeah, that's a 2023.
That's a 2023 as well. New construction is just not going to be a realistic solution to solving this affordability issue for a couple years from now.
Because of the red tape and what needs to be turned to green
Yeah,
tape.
everything's behind.
Everything is behind on all that stuff. And Neil, if he's watching, can probably chime in. I believe the project we're referring to got shot down, did not pass. There was
so.
that or a different project.
I think that's a different one that
was
got
a different
shut down.
project. That's the
Yeah.
reason I didn't want to shout out. I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure we got the right project.
Yeah.
But the point was, a project in Greene County did not make it past the Board of Supervisors on that end of it. So what's going to have to happen is now either it's going to end up going by right, which means less density, and I don't know the project specifically, as far as the details of the density count on that end of it, or, so most folks don't know, if you get shut down for a year, you can't bring the same project back for a year.
Right. That's a huge deal.
Oh, wow.
And so that means you have to retool everything. You have to redo everything and renew the application, redo the layout, redo the density, redo everything in order to submit a new application. Otherwise, it sits. You can't submit the same application for 1 year. So you go through all this work, you go through all this issue to get through that. You get shot down at the Board of Supervisors, and you can't come back for another year.
This has come in. Last week, the conversation that was addressed were people moving out of the city of Charlottesville and moving to other close-in areas with the new comprehensive plan approved. Had to leave your talk early. Will this actually happen with some people? And he also agrees that with my statement that HOA neighborhoods in the urban ring are going to boom in value. Thoughts on that topic, guys? And then we'll get to the ones coming in on Twitter here.
You want to tackle that?
Well, so I wasn't part of that conversation last week, and I missed that show.
So
Fill me in.
So the question is, Jerry's position is that with the new comprehensive plan in Charlottesville and the projected new density coming up is going to force a growth of buyers coming into existing HOAs.
Okay.
Did I get that right?
Kind of. So the zoning in the city of Charlottesville is now going to be more opportunistic, which means that you have more opportunity to create density on land in the city of Charlottesville. A piece of property that's otherwise been zoned for R1 single-family detached now has the option to include added rooftops. Duplex, triplex, quadplex,
That's exactly
granny
right.
cottage, basement, in-law suite, whatever it may be. So the crystal ball prediction is that people that are fearful of density and the impact it could have on quality of life are going to then prioritize HOA neighborhoods because bylaws and governing documents supersede government upzoning changes.
So the short answer is
Oh,
people are going to
yeah.
move out of the city into HOAs.
I mean, there are people who that is a number one concern for them, and I don't see why not. And the reality is that's a really good opportunity for them to sell that property to people who would love to use it and be opportunistic about this. I know there are plenty of buyers that I have helped who would have bought more homes faster if not for those zoning regulations. So this is an opportunity for, while people might be cranky about it, it will feel like a win-win to them because they'll move into that HOA neighborhood that they really want to be in, that has all the rules. The other person, somebody's investor client, is going to be able to swipe up some homes, or just people who want to be in the city and are fine with higher density.
Well,
I think you're going to see
There's a
some
great opportunity
deep-pocketed
there.
individuals sell their properties in the city of Charlottesville, cash in, and then move to HOA neighborhoods in Albemarle County in the urban ring.
That's
and this is going to
assuming-
cause gentrification to happen. You wait and see.
That's already there, though.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just
expedited.
It's going to
expedite
make it worse.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of our
Here's the
history.
flip side to that. That's assuming there's something for them to buy, right? Because the people that are in the HOA are going to buy and hold, right? So they're not going to be able to move into something because if you're living in an HOA or I'm living in an HOA, I'm just not
I
going
do live in an HOA.
And we
Thank
ju-
you, Dan.
and
This is
we're
a great
just-
explanation, Jerry.
we're not going to make the move forward out of it. So
We all
it's
three
going
live in an
to put a, excuse me?
We all three live in an HOA, don't we? I'm just
Yes.
thinking, yeah.
We do. Well,
Mine is very mild, however.
Mine is HOA strong.
and
Yeah, yours is, definitely.
Definitely, definitely. But it's the second largest HOA in the state of Virginia.
Not surprised.
But to play off of what Jerry said a little bit further, which was to me one of the most important statements he made, was that if you are in an HOA in Charlottesville, whatever this comprehensive plan is doing, whatever this rezoning happens, which is way down the road on that end of it, it won't impact you because your covenants and restrictions and your HOA supersedes everything else that will do that. So it'll definitely make the city's HOAs grow for sure. I think as you go a little further out, I think it might do the same thing, but I think that's market is exploding anyway. Old Trail, for instance, and so forth and so on. But it's interesting how it will be played out, particularly in the city, if any new projects come up with HOAs and how that is actually going to get played out.
Well, there's going to be few neighborhood developments in the city that are HOA. I can't think of a new development in the city of Charlottesville that's going to be HOA.
It might be more of a condo situation. So if you go vertical, you can end up doing a condo. So how is that going to impact everything? So it's going to be an interesting.
Yeah, but the density, the upzoning in the comp plan is not going to apply to condos. It's only going to apply to R1 single-family detached property.
I know
that.
that.
You can't further make dense a condo complex.
So let's play that out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you own a piece of property in Belmont.
Okay.
And first of all, there's so much work that has to get done. We don't know what the rules, we don't know what the regulations, we don't know what the height restrictions are going to be. We don't know if the parking requirement's going to be. There's going to be a ton of this work. So let's play a scenario that has all been worked out. Mm-hmm. I can see a reality here where you would have what these mid-rise or low-rise units, like six units going up or 4 units going vertical. So then they would be condos. You would do one unit over the other. Well, otherwise, how are you going to fit them on the parcel?
I think that, and time will tell, but I don't think that there's going to be considerable height restrictions in play to maintain neighborhood character here. You're not going to allow.
There will be height restrictions.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not going to allow a property to tower over another one, because that's going to diminish the value of the property next door. You cannot do that.
So then that goes back to my argument that we were making the other day with Neil. How much is this really going to impact? How many units are we really going to produce in a 10 square miles of area? And
I think it's going to have a big impact. I think it's going to have a big impact for you to be able to, and I've been on record saying this all year long. I think the impact is going to be felt with people that have resources, and someone that has resources that can pivot his or her property into an investment of a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. They're going to do that. I don't think it's going to have the affordability impact of driving the affordability index down like livable Charlottesville saying.
Yeah, it'll only happen if there's substantial subsidies from states, local, and federal. It's the only way it's going to work on that stuff of it. But the question I was asking you, Jerry, was about density. How many more units is this really going to produce? And we're going to be doing this together for a very long time. I think 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when we're having this conversation, I'd love to see what that actual number is going to be. I don't think it's in the tens of thousands like everybody's saying it's going to be.
Oh, I don't. Do you think people who's saying tens of thousands?
Some people that are opposing this are saying there's going to be tens of thousands of new people in the city of Charlottesville. Just read some of the opposition stuff that's into that.
I think that's a scare tactic you leverage to try to change policy.
But they're still saying it, and they're still saying it publicly on that end of it. I think we're in the
tens of thousands when there's only 49,000 people in our community just doesn't make common sense.
I'm not that smart, but that's a huge percentage amount.
That's like saying that the population is going to increase by 50%.
That's exactly.
And that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. So this is more of a
There's 49,000 people in Charlottesville.
Yeah, this is more of a 1 to 5% increase, somewhere in that range. is probably what you're going to end up seeing.
What do you think, Nick? Let's get Nikki in the mix. What do you think?
Sorry, Nikki.
See, my brain goes to the small specific things versus the bigger picture so much faster. So my brain is thinking, this helps for a lot of the people who live in these areas who really would love to treat their home like an R2. They've got a full basement. It's set up to be an independent basement, but they're not willing to take the risk of being like under the radar and following the rules. Some of those people are going to have a lot more opportunity to have their house hacking set up, right? They can live upstairs and they can have somebody rent the downstairs, which alleviates their financial burden and allows someone else to have what would fall into the category of lower cost housing.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you go first.
I think we're going to say the same thing here.
You say it.
Well, first of all, I think, here's the question I have for the viewers and listeners. If you have a basement and you have the opportunity to rent that basement because it has an exit or a door that you can get out of the basement, how many people are not renting that basement because they don't have locality approval? Or how many are saying, I'm not going to ask for permission, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness later? I would bet the majority of people are renting that basement right now.
There are a huge percentage of people that are doing that
but
now.
There are
most people don't care about that.
I get that and I hear you, but when I'm working with investors directly, they factor that in. I haven't had anyone be, hey, I don't care, I'm not going to do that. They've actually all cared because to them it's not worth the risk.
Because technically by law in the city of Charlottesville, an investor cannot rent his house to 6 UVA students at one time. And it's still being done right now. And no one is busting balls about that. Like, we all realize that's watching the show right now. Someone who owns a home on 14th Street that has 5 bedrooms, they technically cannot rent it to 5 UVA students. But that's being done.
No, they're renting it to 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I know that.
No one's busting balls about that.
And I just know this because when my daughter was living in Charlottesville and my now son-in-law was going through med school, I was like, well, hold it. This is illegal. You can't do this. Shut up, Dad. Shut up, Dad. Right. I need a place to live. Shut up, Dad.
No.
So that's not where I was going to go. But you're half of what I was thinking.
So on the other half.
On the other half, the other half of it now becomes, and we've been talking about this regulatory. There's a portion of this regulatory requirements. Nobody's talking about this, and it's the building codes, right? And we're talking
firewalls.
We're not only talking firewalls. If you're going to go down in the basement, you have to have a certain headroom. You have to have formal fire egresses, 2 forms of egress on the end of it. That's just from the building code and the fire code perspective on that kind of stuff. And that's not talking about, do I have to put parking on site? Do I not need to put parking on site? But just from the building code perspective, this is why people just do it. Right? Yeah. And they don't go ahead and do this. You have to have 7-foot clearance minimum. A lot of these basements don't have 7-foot clearance. They have 6'8" clearance. And then by the time you frame things down and build, I'm getting geeked out here.
Well, how about the people marketing something on Craigslist that are calling it a bedroom and it doesn't have a closet or a window? And they're renting them out. And they're saying it's a bedroom. It's not a bedroom. But they're still calling it a bedroom, and they're still collecting $600 a month rent.
State code says it's got to have a form of egress. If you don't have a form of egress, it's not a
bedroom, but people are still doing it.
Absolutely, and people are putting 8 people in a 4-bedroom house, So here's the follow-up question to that. So one of the good things about all this, right, good things from that with the conversation we're having right now is now there's going to be the force of law. Right now it's kind of haphazard. It's gray area. So it's going to be a force of law. And how do you, Jerry knows this, how do you enforce building codes and how do you enforce zoning codes? How does that get enforced?
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Jerry knows.
Jerry knows.
When I do this if I go ahead and put a thing in my basement and it's illegal and you're my next door neighbor,
the neighbor calls.
It's
like neighborhood watch.
Because what's going to happen is
additional parking.
Traffic. All of a sudden, you're going to be pissed, and you're going to pick up and drop. What is it? The cost of? Is it a quarter now?
What's that?
A dime. You just go drop a dime. That's the '60s and the '70s.
Drop a dime. You still drop a dime.
Drop a dime. Drop a dime.
But you drop MacArthur Avenue has a comment. I think there will be more investors that will add basement apartments than homeowners will that decide to do it. And that's to Nikki's point right there. I think this additional opportunistic zoning, I've been on record saying this all year, is going to benefit people with money way more than it's going to benefit people that are living on the market.
But let's play this out a little bit more. So the investor isn't going to cross lines. The investor isn't going to, hey, let me throw this in there and see how it goes. And they won't do it because they're going to run the risk of losing their license. And they have.
Do you know how many investors were running illegal Airbnbs?
Oh,
So many.
It's so off the charts.
Right.
But they're cracking down on that. So what's probably going to
They are cracking down.
So what's going to end up happening in here is through this process, guess what the city's going to start building?
I mean, the city almost needs
got
a
it.
housing police.
That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to build a component of an enforcement component on it. They actually have that now. They actually have a zoning officer that actually.
Is that Neighborhood Development Services?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now again, there's only one person.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last
All
guy
the
took the
properties.
job and never showed up and left and went to Powhatan.
Something.
Now the new person is on the job for a New York minute right now.
Well,
here's
at
the
least
other
we're
side
past
of
the
that,
minute.
though.
We're past
We
the
are
minute.
past
Come
the
on.
We are past the minute.
Yay, Charlottesville.
Good call,
Bar was
Keisha.
really
That's
low,
true.
but hey, we have a new bar
I'm trying to
set.
get better at this. But what'll happen is there'll be a budget item. They'll come in and do this. The building permits and all this stuff will increase substantially. They will hire zoning police, building inspector police,
How is that going to work? Is that going to mean people are going by
That's
in
exactly
the city and knocking on your door?
Well, no.
And saying, let me see your house?
Jerry, how do
It's
you
like the Gestapo.
So yeah, well, don't go there. So how do you know driving around?
Well, additional cars.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the additional cars.
There you go. It
And that's
doesn't
how
take
you
a-
know Airbnb.
It does not take a lot.
Well, what about the other part of that conversation for people who have their properties managed and are not self-managing and they're managed by companies who are run by realtors?
Well, Ally Property Management, for instance, they're
Partner of the show.
Part
Well
of the
done.
show.
Very well done.
So-
But what are
so
their
they-
standards for what they accept? Do they double check to see if these
I
properties
guarantee
they're
you they
managing?
do. I guarantee you they do.
I don't know if all of them do. I guarantee you Ally does. And I know that one that I had previous experience with, my time there, during that time, they learned about those things because I was looking up zoning for things and I was like, hey, I don't think these things match. And they were like, oh, maybe this is something we need to take into consideration.
Just what this conversation we're having about these multiple situations, right? And this is not just this beautiful or pretty colored plan. There's so many pieces after that to do it, and how is it enforced, and how do we? All these conversations have yet to be had, and it's going to take a long time to go through these conversations to get there. But ultimately, it's going to be next door neighbor dropping a dime, right? Hey, is this legal? I see them working on a basement down there, renovating a basement. Do they have a building permit?
Well, to Paul's point, and Paul makes a really good point here. He says, where I lived in Florida, the code enforcement would knock on your door if they saw the construction debris in your trash.
That's exactly right. The first thing they would do is look for a building permit posted. If a building permit isn't posted, then they'll knock on your door.
Yeah.
And if you don't answer the door, the sheriff will come, the city PD will come and knock on your door. That's the force of law.
Well, just to throw in an element of goodwill here, also, if you see weird things with your neighbor, maybe knock on their door and just say, hey, did you know about this? Because maybe they don't care, but maybe they just don't know, because I feel like there are a lot of those factors where people don't know and they do things because they just go do the things.
Well,
Just
Nikki,
a teeny bit of
thank you for
goodwill.
doing that.
I know it's not always going to work, but
Thank you for doing that. We kind of got off of it, but people are pretty awesome, right? And we're about ready to celebrate Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
We are.
right? And look, if you think something isn't right, you should go knock on your door and say, hey, to me it's just the nosy neighbors, right? I put a new roof on
I
my house,
know.
and everybody in my neighborhood is like, hey, are you moving? Hey, are you moving? And they go, no, we're just putting a new roof on the house.
Lisa
There's a
Herndon,
lot of
welcome to
that.
the show.
S. Lisa Herndon is
Ask
a rock
Lisa
star.
Herndon.
Is
Good
a rock
morning.
star.
Yes, she is.
How about this from Dan? We need to tell the truth about renting in the correct way. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in, that a lot of people will do what they want to do. That's 100% true.
So I have Suzanne coming on the show next
Tomorrow?
month. No, she's coming. She's coming on the show with Ally Property.
Oh, that's Suzanne.
In the beginning of December, and we're going to talk literally that that topic on
Nice.
how to properly go through the renting process. So thank you for bringing that up.
So from Evan, Evan Hansen, we like when you watch the program, Evan Hansen. A lot of those non-conforming users were previously modified. There are plenty of people unwilling to invest in the capital required to make a new non-legal dwelling place. That's the Nikki statement.
So very interesting statement. Non-conforming use. This is a zoning speak.
All of UVA housing is off grounds is non-conforming. Drive down anywhere off UVA grounds, and it's all non-conforming.
That's exactly right.
Explain the rule.
Yeah, so what basically non-conforming is exactly what the word means. They are not conforming with zoning ordinance and stuff like that. And there are ways to kind of manipulate the system.
The biggest landlords in the city of Charlottesville own these properties around UVA grounds.
Yeah.
Literally, they do.
So again, this is all about what's about ready to happen next. This is all about that. It's all to say, okay, if you're non-conforming, how does this work? Somebody has to think this process through. And this is what this whole next step's about. That's why I'm telling you, this is going to take forever to get through, because somebody's going to raise their hand, Jerry Miller, Keith Smith, Nikki Chambless, and say, well, hold it, time out. So how are you going to deal with all the non-conforming use now? You've now said it's allowable. You've now said it happens. Now I have this apartment in the basement that's been there for 6 million years that is illegal, doesn't meet the building codes, doesn't meet the fire safety. So what are you going to do now, Coach? How are you going to deal with that? And all that's got to get baked into this discussion that's about ready to happen. So I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer about it, but this is going to take some time, and there's some really high-level stuff that folks need to work their way through.
One time, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors candidate Earl Smith,
Hey, Earl.
who's got the voice of a songbird, the voice of an angel, you do, Earl Smith, says this: there's probably multi-billion dollars in property or more in the city of Charlottesville that is non-conforming.
I would agree with that.
I would 100% agree with that, Earl Smith. And Earl Smith on Nikki's page says hi to Evan on another Facebook page.
Don't you
And
love this
Earl
show?
Smith says, it's no one's business if I'm remodeling my house. Mind your own damn business. Earl Smith. Can't you see Earl saying that?
Oh, I can hear him saying that, just so you know.
I
Yep.
love you, Earl Smith.
So note to everybody, don't knock on Earl's job.
As Lisa Herndon loves what she's hearing right now. I mean, don't you think it's probably north of $1 billion in the city of Charlottesville that's not conforming? I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I mean, around UVA?
it's a lot. I wouldn't throw a number to it, but
I mean, how much is non-conforming in that apartment complex on West Main?
Oh, which one?
Right? That's what I'm saying. Which one?
Let's just maybe
Well,
go
it
with most
depends.
of them.
Are we talking about like the flats and stuff like that? Well, those got permitted.
Those are completely
Okay.
conforming?
They are completely
Okay,
conforming.
okay,
Yeah. They
okay.
went through the whole rezoning process and stuff like that. But you go a couple blocks deep into that, and it's not. And it's interesting how they're going to vet through this, because some of this stuff is going to be grandfathered in, right? And when is that date? Or there is one, or there isn't one.
Fresh out of college, I lived in a home on Little Graves in Belmont. It was me and 3 buddies, 4 of us, and in an 800 square foot home in Little Graves. And none of us were related. We were all renting separate rooms. And one dude climbed a rope ladder into the attic and lived in the attic. Literally lived in the attic.
And was happy to get it.
And was happy to get it.
Yeah.
Because it was like $275 a month. He asked for the rope ladder in the attic.
Right.
And that was property, it was managed by a property management company.
So I'll go one even better than that. The house that was non-conforming use that Yvonne and Houston rented, there was a dude that slept on a hammock underneath a deck that was covered from rain.
And rented it. Yeah, I know. That's worse than mine. And how much did he pay for the hammock?
You know, they
Probably
wouldn't,
a couple hundred.
they wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
But you know, I was just like, I just shook my head and walked out and said, I don't want to know nothing. I don't know. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to S. Lisa Herndon. Love
She's
her,
watching.
Love her to death. You know, she's active in the DEI for NAR, right? I think she's just on a committee for it. So that's the go with DEI. I get it right here for
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. Look at that, Smith. You did
Nicely
it.
done.
Oh, yeah, look at
Better
that,
than I
huh?
would've pulled out.
Yeah, but anyway, shout out to her. I love conversations with her, and she always has a ton of great information to
Which
share.
is highly involved, because she's also on the CAR Board of Directors,
She-
about to step into, which is it? President
Incoming
level?
president, I
Okay,
think.
yeah, I think
But Lisa
so.
will correct me because I'm
Yes.
probably wrong.
Is that accurate?
But huge kudos, like,
I think it's incoming, right? I think Pam is.
Yes,
I think
Pam
it's
Tet is-
it's
yep.
incoming, which will be
So-
awesome. So she'll be president in 2023.
stepping up at high levels in very many arenas.
We need to get
be
her
able
on
to
the
make a
show.
difference.
Lisa, we need to get you on the show.
Yeah. Well, she's busy solving the world's problems. You know,
Truly.
she's doing some rock star stuff.
The UVA, how about this statement from Earl? UVA does not pay property taxes on most of the property it's on.
Interesting. It does not pay property tax on property owned by UVA. It does pay property tax on owned by the foundation. And a huge chunk of their property is actually owned by the foundation.
Yeah, so that's a big point of clarification.
That's a huge point. And oh, by the way, most of the property owns is not in the city of Charlottesville.
Yeah, well, and UVA is in Elmore County.
UVA.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Most of UVA is in Albemarle County, not
That's
the city of
nuts if
Charlottesville.
you think about that.
Yeah.
How about this statement from Paul, that the additional property is going to drive more revenue for the wealthy, but the poor person gets an additional housing option?
Yeah, so it's a matter of how it's all structured, right? And how the city sets this up and what the initiatives are or the incentives are to help this affordable housing thing context. Do they give tax breaks to the property owner if they, like they did out in Portland and Seattle, so that you know there's an incentive to go ahead and do this? Because there's going to have to be some offset, right, on the cost of construction and so forth and so on to get there. And it involves, the city just can't wave a magic wand and say, we want affordable housing and here's the rules. They're going to have to, it's a contact sport. They're going to have to be in the trenches with us.
What's the, people are asking of the code of the basement apartment, size of windows, closet doors? You want to throw
So
that
you want me to scratch off my Class
Your
A
Class
license? Yeah. So the window has to be unobscured of roughly 5 square feet.
Because the person has to be able to get out in case
That's
of
exactly
a fire.
right. It can't be so many inches off the floor. Man, I'm scratching off some really old builder thing. I think it's like 30 inches or 18 inches. It can't be between 18 and 30 inches off the floor. The unobstructed ability to get through it has to be 5 square feet. So that's why you see in a lot of homes you have these tilt out windows, right? So you can tilt out both windows. As long as you can take it out without needing tools, then that meets it. And if it's in a basement, it has to have, and it has a well around it, you have to have a set of stairs going out. It's a tremendous amount of requirements to go, which is all good stuff, right? This is all about saving lives.
Yes.
To go ahead and do it, yeah. But it's around that, or you have a door, right?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and this speaks to, Earl, I'm not trying to call you out or anything, but it's not hard to do. The whole stay out of my business, the whole point of being in the business isn't just for meddling. Not that that doesn't happen, but it's for things like safety, so people don't get trapped in a basement in whatever situation that would be really screwy and horrible and potentially have people die, right?
Well, I can assure you, nosy neighbors will always come knocking on your door.
Yeah.
I literally.
No matter where you live.
I just the roof, right? I did a new roof because we're going with Sigora Solar is putting solar on our
How
house.
many realtors hit you up?
Well,
Not enough of 'em?
They pretty much know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hope that he's going to
I was
list his
like-
own home.
Well, that's true, I guess.
Isn't that what you were going to say there?
I'm pretty sure we're gonna-
Like
Yeah,
that, but I guess
I hope you don't
your neighbors
outsource
might.
listing your
I
house.
don't know.
Well, I don't know. Yona might not trust me, so who knows? I was like, what the hell are you
You don't
talking
have
about?
time for that, Keith.
I don't.
Have one of your agents do it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Any other great questions on the field?
Yes. How do you enforce some of these estate or farm properties where there's not cars that are congesting a road or neighbors to see? That's a good question.
Yeah, you don't.
So first of all, they still have nosy neighbors.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah,
It's
I mean-
just not as bad or condensed.
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking from yourself?
I'm speaking from having lived in multiple rural areas in multiple states. You still have nosy neighbors, no matter how much acreage you have and how far apart you are.
The Airbnb portion of it actually is super easy to enforce because all somebody has to do is look at Airbnb.
Yeah, that's how they started busting the balls on the Airbnb. Because they were putting the evidence online.
That's how that's how you enforce it. You know, if I got 100 acres somewhere and I put an Airbnb on the back of it or an ADU or something, but that implies we're talking Albemarle County rural areas that they would actually adopt this. So we're just talking about the city at the moment. A little fact that most folks don't know, Fulvana County actually has on the books forever an auxiliary dwelling unit. You can, in Fulvana County, put an auxiliary dwelling unit, and it does not have to be related in Fulvana County. Back to the HOA thing, but if I want to do it in Lake Monticello, it must be related because of the HOA and the covenants and restrictions supersedes what the county says.
So do you think they're going to blow up the HOAs, Nikki? Even more so than they are now?
I think there's potential for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what will be really interesting for all of us to look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is
the true impact this is going to have?
Well, it's like anything. You don't really know until it's over, right? Will EVs really have, electric vehicles really have an impact, or will it not? So we're just spitballing and crystal balling it. What I was going to get at was, so will Albemarle County go here? Will Greene County go here? Will Nelson go here? Will what Charlottesville's doing spider its way
out? I think it will.
That was really a rhetorical question because I think it will.
Because there's huge real estate tax advantages of doing this for the municipality.
Exactly right. But what I was
retail and food and beverage.
So what I was trying to get to, so now we're out in the surrounding counties. Now we're doing a new development. It's going to be a PUD or whatever it is, and now we have I have to my coverage and restrictions. So everybody understands how this works. If I do a subdivision, let's assume this all happens in the city of Charlottesville. It's all done. All the rules are all done, and let's assume we find land that you actually can do a subdivision on, right? Let's assume that has that. Now my covenants and restrictions must comply with the law, the current zoning ordinances. And there's a process that goes through that because the county or the city attorney approves these covenants and restrictions, approves these HOAs before it gets recorded. Now, if it's recorded and they change the rules, the old whatever the HOA wants to do applies. So what I was going to try to get at, I'm really interested to see how the rest of the counties do in the future subdivision.
That's a really good topic right there. Will future HOA neighborhoods allow this opportunistic zoning within the neighborhood?
So here's even a better part of it. So I'm going to develop something in Albemarle County, and you and I are betting that it's going to happen in Albemarle County.
Yeah.
Do I now write my ordinances
right now
to what I think it's going to be? And that's the conversation one has.
Or take it a step further. If you're doing a neighborhood in Albemarle County and you think that there's value proposition in doing bylaws and HOA regulations that are opposed to this opportunistic zoning, do you go ahead and get those bylaws in place as quickly as possible before the jurisdiction does that?
So before we get into trouble, we can't write covenants and restrictions that supersede sitting ordinances.
Unless it's done before the jurisdiction puts them in play.
No, we can't do that because the county is going to review it and say, no, you do not match the current thing. But what you can write in the covenants and restrictions, a quicker path to actually happening. So what I'm getting at, most covenants are, I'm sorry, I'm getting on a...
No, this is great. I love this. I love this.
Most covenants and restrictions require a two-thirds majority to change something. You and I can get together and do a subdivision and say, you know what, it's just a simple majority. Now, Nikki might talk to me that I'm buying and we're reviewing the HOA and might say, you need to understand if we have 4,500 people or 100 people and it only takes us one vote, then the covenants and restrictions can change. Those are things we can do, but what we can't do is we can't increase density that isn't allowed at the time.
Let me ask you this. Can you do
that make
this?
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
can you
absolutely.
do this? Let's say Albemarle County approves the same upzoning or opportunistic zoning that the city of Charlottesville is going to do.
Got it.
That's the first hypothetical.
So are we creating a comprehensive plan or actual zoning?
Actual zoning.
Got it.
So a step beyond comprehensive plan.
Got it.
Okay. So let's say Albemarle County is beyond the comprehensive plan and it's a fact that you can do this.
Yep.
Can a new neighborhood then come to market, that's HOA, and do bylaws and regulations that are opposing the opportunistic zoning of Albemarle County?
No.
They would have to follow suit.
They would have to match. They would have to be a minimum of that. They can exceed it, right?
From a density standpoint.
Whatever it is, they can. It doesn't matter.
Dude. So in that scenario, do you understand what the ridiculous value would be of the neighborhoods that have zoning that is
I'm not disagreeing with
pre-opportunistic zoning?
I don't like the word. I don't like the word opportunistic, but
that's very applicable.
I will let you use that word. Of executive producer allow you.
Okay, thank you, executive producer.
Use that word.
The value of those neighborhoods that do not have the opportunistic zoning will be through the roof.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But this is historically. This has happened all the time, right? There's zoning ordinances change. They have been changing over time, and I'll tell you.
Consider that.
I will tell you. Well, I'm going to make it even worse than that. I will tell you. I've seen in other.
Do you guys hear what we're talking about here?
I'm sorry.
This is
people watching.
This is a big deal. Take it a step further.
So a step further would be, Fluvanna County, at some point, changed its A1, which was their version of single family, and they added a thing called cluster developments to it. So right now in the county of Fluvanna County, and other counties have the same thing, I'm just going to speak to one that I know intimately. If you and I were to say, hey, we're going to put a 100-acre subdivision together, and it's in the growth area, yada, 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 and we want to go for a rezoning and we feel we can't get it, I could just take that 100 acres and cut it up into what's called a cluster development and potentially put 75 to 100 homes in there. Nobody's got to ask. I got to have water and sewer. There's all these kind of different things that I have to have on that end of it, but that's what could happen right now. And the reason I brought that up was before Fluvanna County inked it, everybody went out and subdivided a bunch of land into 2-acre, because what they did is they eliminated this 2-acre subdivision in Fluvanna County. Basically, if you had this 100-acre lot, we could only divide it 4 times. And so what happened, it used to be that you could take this 100-acre lot and subdivide it into 52-acre lots, right? And so what happened was once this was on the pipeline, once this got past planning commission, once this was going, everybody started slapping in site plans on projects, cutting them up into these 2-acre lots, because once you got in the system, you were going by the old rules,
right?
Not the new rules.
Yeah. So they fast-tracked it.
No. Once I made an application, that was it. And tomorrow, if I made an application today for a subdivision, and tomorrow they change the rules, once that application is accepted, I go by the old rules, not the new rules. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What are you thinking over there, Chambless?
Did I wonk out a little bit?
No.
No, you're good. You're good. You totally geeked out in your jam, and that's
No,
awesome.
it's just-
I just
it's
don't
just-
have much to add to this
just been
conversation.
here, done this.
And I think we're good. Yeah.
I want to get to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Well, I mean.
But let's see what the feed says.
Well, I mean, how about this from the
Yeah.
feed? That HOAs, this one specifically. Most covenants and restrictions in subdivisions need updates in our area, in particular Albemarle. Your thoughts on that?
I'm going to try that again.
Most covenants and restrictions in subdivisions need updates in our area.
Okay, so the question I would ask back is, how do you update them?
And I would take it a step further. How do you update them without doing a disservice to the property owners in that neighborhood that bought in that neighborhood because of those restrictions?
That's absolutely right. You could
because you approve them before you buy.
Correct, but you also, so that, and Nikki will jump in because this is something you know very well. Again, it's this, if you're going to go into an HOA, you have now 7 days, if I remember correctly, to review them. It used to be 3 days. And they do this on purpose because, jump in, why do I as a buyer get to approve the HOAs before I close? I have 7 days to do that.
We need to make sure you're good with everything in there. But part of that knowledge and that conversation, I feel like I'm totally going to go off track from where you wanted me to go, is that you also understand that they might change in the future.
That's exactly the reason I'm saying we're on the same.
But for them to change, you need a lion's share of people in the community to do it.
And if that happens, you've signed up for that.
Yeah.
This is what you are agreeing to, is to allowing a whole bunch of other people potentially make decisions for you.
And a perfect example of this, and you know this intimately, is Lake Monticello. Did you see the story in the newspaper about potentially going to rent a cop away from Lake Monticello police service? That's not going to happen.
Look, I've been living there since '87.
You can't get 100 people to do one thing, let alone a 4,300 rooftop community.
That conversation has been going on for 30 plus years.
But isn't it the first time in a while that you guys are running out of money for the police service?
It's been consistent.
Okay.
It happens, but it's important. So, Lake Monticello, most HOAs, you can't raise the dues without a substantial, without 2/3 majority vote of 4,500 people. Period.
Which is a huge amount.
They're not going to decide that Thanksgiving is coming on Thursday. Nevertheless, vote on something like that. Oops, was that too sarcastic?
No,
I thought it was great.
That was, I loved it.
This,
right. But that's why it's so important, because they can change them. The other thing that they can do special assessments, right?
Yeah.
They can come in and say, okay, we're now doing a special assessment, and it has to be very specific on what it's going to do. And we've recently done that at the lake because our pool needed to be redone, all this stuff. So they could conceivably say, you know what, we're doing a special assessment, one-time assessment of X dollars, everybody's got to pay X dollars, and we just fully funded the police department.
Going from a full service police department to a rent-a-cop model would do a disservice to the neighborhood.
So that whole particular subject is mirrored in a bunch of issues that's going back from the 1960s, when the judge gave police powers to Lake Monticello. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, when I first moved there in 1987, the only full-time police officer in Fluvanna County that was available was Lake Monticello. Because what happened was the sheriff at the time, and this is 1987, 88, so the sheriff stopped serving the county at midnight. State cops stopped serving the county at midnight. So back in the day, Lake Monticello would respond to domestic disputes and all this stuff in Fluvanna County. And the only reason I know that is I was a cop on Lake Monticello back in 87 and 88, and I used to respond out in the county. So I
didn't know you were a cop.
Yeah, well, I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was doing whatever I could do to get a job. I had a federal police license. When I did what I did in the service, and so I was working midnight shifts there. I was putting roofs on during the day. I was doing whatever I could do to raise money, but I was the only police officer on duty after midnight back in 88 and 89.
I learned, I've been spending a lot of time with you for how long?
I keep a little
4
bit.
years?
I keep a couple of cigarettes. There's a story behind that why I quit, but I'm not so sure I want to tell it.
I don't think so. I can only imagine.
It involved a domestic dispute and nobody else but me and a shotgun, and I fixed it. So,
good Lord.
So,
what's your take on the rent-a-cop versus the police force?
Yeah, so it's not going to happen. I find it hard to believe that it's going to happen unless the state pulls the certification, and I just don't see it happening. I may be wrong though.
I don't think it's going to happen either. 11:36. Nikki Chambless. Any final words for you?
Oh, geez.
Well, were you going to talk about Turkey Day at all?
Yeah, you can kick it off, then we'll jump in.
I'm kicking it off? Now I'm hungry, y'all. We waited so long to talk about Thanksgiving, and now all I can think about is all this food I'm about to eat.
So, tomorrow, Jerry and I are going to wear some special hats.
Ooh. So excited.
And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to bring in Millie from Blue Ridge Area Food Bank for about 15 minutes to talk about food insecurity, about Hunger Heroes. I've asked Judah to drop a couple of links in that Yona and I are doing a little bit of a campaign, a Hunger Heroes campaign, and we're gonna do a 1-to-1 match up to $1,000. So we're going to kind of promote that a little bit tomorrow, see if we can raise $1,000 on air. And anybody else wants to help us now, they go ahead and jump into that. It's important because Jerry gave me this idea. And the reason why Jerry gave me this idea is I was watching what the cost of Thanksgiving meal is going forward. And over a 36-year survey that I'm just looking at right now, it's up 14%. It's the highest it's been in 36 years. So, folks are food insecure, they need help. We're always about trying to give back, and that's what we want to do, and we want to help folks have a warm meal in their stomach. But everybody knows, if we can raise $2,000, that puts 8,000 meals on people's tables.
That's substantial.
Wonderful. Yeah,
that is wonderful.
Absolutely.
But we'll match it 1-to-1 up to 1,000. So Nikki,
it.
kick in.
I will.
Nikki Chambless is awesome. She joins us on the Monday Market Monitor. Keith Smith, always awesome. Tomorrow at 10:15, we're back with Real Talk with the Blue Ridge Food Bank.
Yep, for about 15 minutes.
For about 15 minutes.
And then we're going to have fun.
Thanksgiving costumes tomorrow as well. So J-Dubs, you got the details for tomorrow's show. The show is presented by Yes Realty Partners. It's powered by Sigora Solar. The distinguished gentleman has Sigora Solar on his roof.
Oh, not yet. It's on the way.
On the way. Closure, Title, and Settlement Company, Ally Property Management, Keller Williams Alliance, also a part of the Monday Market Monitor. We very much enjoy connecting with you guys through this platform. Job well done, you two.
And for you,
Thank you.
I can tell you right now, I'm thankful for the 3 days a week we spend together.
Same. I agree. And I Love CVille show, guys, is up in 50 minutes. Thank you kindly for joining us on Real Talk. We'll touch base with you really soon. You guys have a good Monday. Take care. Very nicely done.
Thank you, guys. This was great.